70% chance of making the playoffs per Fangraphs. They're right up there with the Yankees. The Jays, we should also mention, have a 70% chance of making the playoffs if it started today. But the Blue Jays, their season has gone really well. Obviously, last year it did not end the way that Jays fans had hoped, but behind the scenes, a lot of folks were like, okay, yeah, we're glad that the Blue Jays did not make the playoffs because they would have caused a lot of problems if that had been the case. So it was like one of those things where it was a lot of teams were not sad that did not happen, but they are looking like a playoff team. But through what are we at? 60 games, 50 something games?
55 for the Jays right now.
Yeah. Through 55 games, has this season been kind of the way you anticipated for Toronto?
I would say probably not. It's been a really, I mean, wins and losses wise, yeah, you can't be mad at. I think they're on a 97 win pace and 11 up on 500. But they were very, very average to below average to start the year. And that was kind of the shocker. They weren't hitting at all. If you go look just at their scores from the first month and a half of the season, they really were a middling offensive team that was pitching really well, which is the opposite of what the Blue Jays kind of image is to a lot of people. It's a team that scores a lot but probably needs more pitching. Recently, and kind of starting with their dismantling of the Angels, who have fallen apart since they swept them in the 4-game set, they've started to hit like the Blue Jays, and that's what makes me really excited. Is now, I know it's the Kansas City Royals, but it's a Major League Baseball team that you have scored, I think, 17 runs on and not allowed a run against in 2 games, and that's the potential of the Blue Jays and what we expected to see with, the bolstered rotation and the bolstered bullpen, and then obviously this offense is going to score.
Yeah, it's interesting because the 2 corner outfield spots are still not hitting. You've got Chapman, who is still very much not hitting, and then you found out that maybe Kevin Biggio is just a utility guy and not an everyday starter. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I would say so, but part of the reason we found that out is because Santiago Espinal is not a utility player and definitely a starter. So Kevin got hurt. I will say in Teoscar's defense, he got hurt as well. And other people had to step up. And yeah, Biggio I think he's a good utility player because he plays first, third, second, left, and right. So you can really use him. They need a left-handed bat. But yeah, he's probably more of a get in where he fits in type of guy. And then the corner outfielders did not start the year well. They're both OPS is still in the 600s, but I don't have their May numbers in front of me, but they were a lot better than their April numbers at least. So it's trending in the right direction.
There you go. Who has been the biggest surprise this year for Toronto?
Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro Kirk is...
He's like a cult hero now in Toronto.
Yeah, so, I mean, most people don't know he's 23. He's younger than Adley Rutschman. He's younger than a lot of people who are prospects coming up right now. He's hitting .320 with an .878 OPS. He's the highest WAR catcher in the American League. Unless he completely tails off, I expect him to be an American League All-Star this year. And you wouldn't have expected that by the numbers, your best production hitter for the Blue Jays, 50 games in, like we're a third of the way into the year. It's not a 10-game sample size. Is Alejandro Kirk. Is he the best hitter on this team? No, it's probably George Springer or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Bo Bichette. But Alejandro Kirk has hit as well as anyone has. So to me, he's been the biggest surprise.
Was this coming, though, when y'all were going into the year? Like, was this something that he had in him, that he could be this kind of masher this year? Like, was this what was the scouting report on Kirk before we saw all of this?
It was not fully this. I would say close to it. He's always been a really good contact guy. He's not tall. He's shorter than I am, which is saying something. So he doesn't have a huge strike zone, which allows his, high contact skills to flourish, but he's hitting for more power. He's walking more than he struck out to start this year. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. And the big thing for him that didn't enable him to be an everyday player and hit to this potential before is that he was a minus defender. And now he's arguably been a plus defender for the Blue Jays as a catcher. And if that's the case, then the sky's the limit. And the crazy thing is Danny Jansen, their other main catcher who's been in and out of the lineup, every time he's in the lineup, he's clubbing homers. And their top prospect, who probably should be called up by now, but they have nowhere to put him, is Gabriel Moreno, another catcher. So I think a lot of people, I don't know. That's a good question. I think you probably you trade someone because you're not going to keep Moreno down because he's cost controlled for 6 more years, and you want to use that while you have it. So I think, Danny Jansen, who is a beloved player for the Blue Jays and a personal catcher to Hyun-Jin Ryu, could find himself on the trade block at some point because...
Well, it doesn't help that Ryu is not having a great year.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. It definitely doesn't help. But they need to move on from a catcher, and if Kirk is hitting 320 with an 880 OPS, you can't trade him. He's younger than Jansen. He's got more cost-controlled years ahead of him. And Moreno, at a certain point, has to get up to the majors. Maybe you try and teach him another position. I don't know. But for now, I do think they could be looking to move on from someone. That's with literally zero insider information. But they're not going to have 3 catchers. There's just not enough roster spots to make that justifiable.
So what kind of capital could he bring in, though, Moreno? Like, does he bring in another veteran arm that you guys could use? Because, I don't know. There's not... You look around the league, it's like, do you want to take a flyer on Strasburg if he's somewhat healthy this summer? Patrick Corbin for 2 more years. Do you want to bring that guy in? I don't know. Like, what do you do if you're the Jays? Because, I mean, Barrios, as we haven't talked about yet, he hasn't been good this year. Like, it's very strange. Like, Ross Stripling, great. And then you have, like, Barrios and Ryu, not great. I don't know. What should be the thinking if you're Toronto? Like, if you're moving one of these 3, like, I feel like Jansen would not bring in nearly the haul that Moreno would bring in, right?
Yeah, I don't think he would, but I do think they value Moreno much higher in terms of not wanting to give him up.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for bullpen arms. I think everyone's always looking for bullpen arms. Their bullpen has been solid, but what contending team doesn't want to stash another guy that can pitch in the 7th or 8th? And I think they're looking for a left-handed bat. I think it could go one of 2 ways. I think they could be looking for, maybe an Andrew Benintendi, some sort of contact bat, or an Ian Happ maybe. Or they could be looking for a pure power left-handed bat. Like, I wonder if, they don't really have a fixated DH. That's why Biggio can play so much, because they rotate everyone in and out of the DH spot, which I like. But if they want a DH, Josh Bell is out there if they're looking for someone. And I'm sure there's other guys I'm forgetting that can bat from the left side and hit
Bell
for power.
Would be great for them.
Yeah, and even, another guy that kind of mixes it. They had Corey Dickerson last year. He's a solid player. Like, is he,
Can I interest you in an Alex Dickerson?
Yeah, you never know. So I think they're looking for lefty bats and relievers most likely. I think they are, I know we're going to get into it in a bit. I think they are betting on Barrios to bounce back. So I don't think they're incredibly worried about the rotation. And Ryu, if you look pre-injury, he was a lot worse than post-injury, but then he just got injured again. So I'm most worried about his health. But I think with Manoah, Kikuchi, Gausman, Stripling, and then the variable of Barrios, they probably feel fine enough about the starters to stand pat there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they end up doing there. What about Vlad Jr.? It seems like he has not drawn a lot of the same kind of buzz this year, and he's still good. You look at the numbers and everything else, he's still good. Is it just like he's not otherworldly this year, so people have kind of looked the other way and are looking at guys like Kirk who just pop more and are bigger surprises? But has Vlad been basically what you expected?